welcome again to another edition of Seekers of Meaning, the podcast arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm Rabbi Richard Address, the Director of Jewish Sacred Aging and your host. We welcome you and thank you very, very much for joining today. These podcasts, as many of you know, are designed to explore issues related to our own aging and the implications of longevity for our families and our community. We welcome your comments to me, Rabbi Address, at jewishsacredaging.com. And it is a great deal of pleasure that we welcome to today's edition of Seekers of Meaning, Karen Hoffman, the founder of Living on Purpose, coming to us from wonderful Dallas, Texas. Hi, Karen. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Rabbi. Thank you. So nice to be here.
Well, full disclosure, you don't have to be that formal. We've known each other for a few years. So
Okay.
it's nice to see you. It's nice to see you. Thank you very, very much. I want to explore with you something actually that this week and next week are going to take up some time here on Seekers of Meaning. And that is this interesting phenomenon that we've talked a lot about in the last couple of years here on Seekers of Meaning. And it comes up all the time in all the classes and workshops that we do. And that is for people of baby boom generation who, for a variety of different reasons, decide to say, I've done something for a long time, and now it's time to go forth, the Genesis 12 moment, the Lech Lecha. And you've done that with something called Living on Purpose. So let's get right to that. What is Living on Purpose?
So my son, I have three sons. My 27-year-old son was staying with us during the pandemic. And what he said was one day, what you represent to me, Mom, is a person who lives on purpose. And I said, well, it's not that I'm looking to find purpose in my life, which is what a lot of people think when they think of purpose. It's the intentionality. And so as months went on and we started thinking about creating a business model, Living on Purpose just kept coming up as a resonant phrase for bringing attention to intention. And a lot of it was steeped in my Jewish learning, things like practicing Musar, which is a focused intention on different soul traits or characteristics, or what I've now translated into universal values and virtues. So even though I learned and studied Musar through the lens of Judaism, so many of these values and virtues are things that guide everyday life and really do transcend the Jewish context of Musar. And Living on Purpose is just the name that we came up with for this company, this venture, this exploration to help other people, Jews, non-Jews. I really work with the interfaith, multi-faith, and even the NONE, the nun community, helping people live whatever stage they're at with intentionality. Is that
So on the website,
mm-hmm.
which is Living on Purpose, what the website is what?
.us.
.us.
Livingonpurpose.us. Thank you.
You have this thing on our story. You say Living on Purpose helps people on their personal journeys to live a life of greater meaning. Okay, so look, I'm from the Philadelphia area, from Jersey. What does that mean? Does that mean we're gonna go to the ball game every day? What translate that into real? Somebody sitting in you and says, "Well, I want to.
Sure.
Something's wrong." What does that mean to live a life of greater meaning?
Well, what I found in my journey, which I'm still on a journey, I am a lifelong learner. And what I found is that people are struggling. Dr. Betsy Stone, from, I think you probably, I don't know if she's been on your podcast. She would be great to have on your podcast. She's an instructor psychologist at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion. And early in the pandemic, she was one of the first people that I listened to and learned from about the psychosocial impact that the pandemic was having. And this was in May of 2020, like 2 months into being socially and physically isolated from people. And we were already seeing some of the impacts. And that's pretty much when I started delving into what seeking meaning might look like and living with more greater meaning. And it's not about, it could be about going to a ball game, but it's really the essence of living your best life. And I feel that if people call more attention to exploration of things like how to develop a practice, they will find that these words that matter in life add meaning.
So you left a long time career in synagogue life
I did.
um, at age when you turned a certain age. Um, what would, how much of that did you just to say I've had enough? This is not fulfilling enough. I'm interested in the motivation of what
Sure.
made you give up this. I'm learning a nice living. I'm secure. I have a job. I have a recognition in the community, um, and I'm going to just say goodbye to it and just leap. What was
Okay.
what was what was there a point that you hit that said I got to do this, or was it gradual? What was the story there?
I would say part of it was gradual, and without going too deeply into the roots and my personal ancient history, I will say that working as a Jewish professional is something that I've been doing since I was in my 20s as a licensed nursing home administrator in Los Angeles. Um, and I left that field for motherhood. It was a conscious choice that my husband and I made when we moved away from our family and had two of our first two children. And I made a conscious decision back then to focus my life for those years as a mother and volunteer. But suddenly things started percolating again, and I had my third son and he was off to school, and suddenly that professional thing was stirring again. And I started talking and working with the Jewish Family Service in the gerontology department. So that was the next thing coming after being nursing home administrator. And from there, I found myself beautifully matched with Temple Emmanuel of Dallas, where I served as a program director, an engagement director, associate executive director, and even a short period of time as interim executive director. And I was there for 14 years. That's where I met you about probably a dozen years ago. And you were our scholar in residence and in many ways, a mentor for the stage that I'm in now. And it was a combination of realizing that that work had been so fulfilling. And yet during the pandemic, what I found was that I was searching for something even more deeper than what I was able to get. And there was a whole constellation that went into this decision. And I don't think we need to dwell on that, except to say that in November of 2020, We were deep into the pandemic at this point. Betsy Stone sat on my left shoulder often through webinars, seminars, and things that I noted. And I was on the verge of turning 60, and there was an election. And I sat with my son. My youngest son came to visit us for 2 weeks and ended up staying for 3 months. And one day he looked at me and he said, "Are you really doing what matters?" And I sat with that. And he said, in the way it reminds me of Hans Christian Andersen's story about the emperor's new clothes, that it was the child who comes and says,
Right.
"People, he's naked, he's not wearing any clothes." And it was my 26-year-old son at the time who said, "I don't see the joy in you that I had seen in all those other years. What's going on?" And my husband and I were living through the pandemic, spending more time than ever. And I think it was just this convergence of what I've done, what I'm learning, what I'm seeking, what I'm doing for myself. And I was caring deeply for our congregation, for the community, for my staff team, and may not have been taking the best of care of myself. And so, with my husband's unwavering support and encouragement, I left Temple Emmanuel and decided to take a sabbatical. And I'm not a clergy and I'm not a professional educator, but I knew that I wanted to be doing something different. And a sabbatical to me represented an opportunity to learn, explore, and come up with something new. And so I did some deep diving, I did reading, I came up with this concept of helping others. And it's not that I'm necessarily an expert, but I have wisdom and experience, and people come to me. And so, with my reading, my writing, and my sharing, uh, I feel that I have these gifts that I can share with other people to help their lives and their journeys.
Karen, what
So,
how much of your own strength of faith was there as you made this transit? Because there's a lot of people who reach that same point and have those questions asked and they retreat. They say, "Yeah, I really want to do this, but I'm just scared to take that risk because I have security in this day and age." But you and other increase a lot of boomer, they say, something, it's now or never. And this is some how much of the faith in your own self, because we don't talk about, I think, enough about that idea of just faith in your own self and your own ego strength. How present was
yeah,
that for you in this?
that's really interesting because I wouldn't say that I have the most confidence. I wouldn't say that I have the strongest sense of courage, but I do have resilience. Uh, and when I knew that it wasn't a good fit for me any longer at Temple, I had other opportunities. There were recruiters that came after me to be a synagogue administrator, a nonprofit executive director for some really beautiful causes. But there was just a struggle inside of me that was begging me to go deeper into myself and develop, cultivate that stronger sense of resilience and
Right.
rely on it. I had had a very bad bicycle accident in 2019, fell into a ditch, broke my humerus. Um, it was really, really awful coming out of that. And I think that that also played into it. When the pandemic hit, I was still in recovery. I was unable to use my right arm, which is my dominant arm. And today I can do this, and if I can do that and realize that recovery which when you make a change in life, it's a recovery. Healing is not the straight arrow from here to
Right.
there. There's lots of circuitous routes that you are going to take to get there. And I think that lesson, along with all those other life lessons, have given me the strength to say, do it, just do it. And it's
It
people
sounds like
like your own guests, from previous podcasts of yours, the authors of what do you want to what what do you want to be when you grow old?
you grow
It's not like
old.
you always
Right.
have taught me. You don't get old. You grow old, and I'm growing. And I feel the same way about knowledge versus wisdom. And what I'm trying to do now in this stage of my life is to gather the knowledge pieces, do some squinting, like another one of your guests, Margaret Novak, said. I want to do some of that really intense squinting and then broaden that lens by sharing, if there are, pearls of wisdom with others.
Well, it also sounds like the universe was sending you a series of messages, and but your soul was open to receiving them, and not everybody is open to receiving them. And some people, when they receive them, reject because of fear. And so, part of the message here is it's what we teach in Genesis 12: don't be afraid to go forth into the future that you may not
Mm-hmm.
know. So, living on purpose, you work with organizations, individuals. Talk to me about some, I'm interested at this stage of my life, or I'm part of an organization that needs to grow and transition. I come to you, I go to your website, livingonpurpose.us,
Sure.
and what are you going to do for me? What are you going to offer me?
Sure. So I spent some time researching and working with a kind of an advisory group, but then also a pilot group of people from age 18 to 85, and brought 100 different words to them as part of an experiment.
So talk to me about these words, these 100 words, Karen. What? Give me an example of some of these words.
So a word would be gratitude, a word would be listening, a word is resilience and trust. And there were 100 words, and we narrowed them down by creating this big Google spreadsheet. And one of the people in his 80s didn't even want to do it that way. So we printed it out and he wrote all his responses and comments. And to this day, which is about 4 months now, he sends me emails every time he reads an article online that resonates with one of the words. And so that's an example of living with more meaning, because this person used to read articles and skim through them. And suddenly these words are resonating in his everyday life, and he shares it. And
So
it's a lot better than dad jokes.
no, but how does that impact an organization?
Okay, so for an example, in in my work with an HR professional and her sales team, we asked the question, what would your life be like with more? And then we picked a card. And these cards, there's a physical deck now that I just got printed, and there's a digital deck that I do when I do things online. And people kind of just rub the cursor over it and click, and a word pops up. And so the prompt is, what would my life be like with more attention to listening? And as a sales team, what she did was say, today's teaching is about customer service. And we want to build our team's ability and capacity to do better customer service. And this is in the corporate arena.
Right,
And so
right.
we would pick 6 words, and the people would then sit in groups of 2 or 3 and talk about what their work as a salesperson would be like if there was more listening than talking. God created humans with 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we would listen twice as much as talk. And that's one of the quotes that we use. And so it's an aha opportunity for some of these people who don't, in their everyday life, think about listening. What would your life be like as a salesperson if you practiced more patience? So people who are at any age or stage who are goal driven or product driven can benefit from doing stuff like this, because work like this, because it's focusing their attention on these virtues. And we have plans to do this with young children, with preschool. I've done some educational programming with the early childhood educators, because what would it look like to practice in everyday life gratitude? It's a practice that I've been doing for 10 years. I write every single evening 3 things for which I'm grateful, and I share that with other people. It helps me sleep better. It helps me live with, and part of that is the Jewish traditions. We wake up and we say Modeh or Modani. We thank God. You know, I my business is not so much a Jewish centric business, but the infusion of my own Jewish upbringing and my Jewish life and my study can't help but infuse the work that I'm doing. And so, for example, you had mentioned faith earlier. I am not one who does a lot of petitionary prayer, but my prayer is always steeped in gratitude. And I can see how gratitude, like, go back to that customer service team of professionals, and it's women and men on these kinds of teams. And it's, sometimes there's breath work or mindfulness work that we bring into it. And sometimes that feels a little, to use the overused phrase, woo woo, it feels a little too woo woo for some people. But when they really do the deep diving into what words matter and how they can impact life, that to me is helping people live on purpose and live with greater meaning.
So the website again, if somebody wants to get a hold of you or talk to you or bring Living on Purpose into their organization or their communal organization or their synagogue or their church or their club, how do they do that? Where do they go?
They can contact me directly, Karen, Karen, at livingonpurpose.us. The website has opportunities to sign up for workshops, retreats online. I've been doing remote retreats for 4 hours with people from Israel all the way to California, and spanning time zones and bringing people together and talking and sharing and learning and growing together.
And the website again, livingonpurpose.us,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Karen Hoffman, the founder of Living on Purpose. And Karen, thank you very, very much for your
Thank you.
time and continued good luck. Stay healthy
Thank you. You
and
too.
be careful down there in Texas. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Say hello to everybody for me.
Okay. Be well.
Thank you. And to all of you, thank you again for watching and listening to today's edition of Seekers of Meaning, the podcast arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. Remember, we're now on Roku and a variety of other platforms. Again, we welcome your suggestions and comments to me, Rabbi Address at jewishsacredaging.com. And if you'd like to make a tax-free donation to help support our work in these podcasts, please go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com. Go down to the conveniently located donate button and follow the prompts. Seekers of Meaning is produced at the broadcast centers of Lubetkin Media Companies in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And again, we shout out to our producer, Steve Lubetkin. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Adress, and I look forward to greeting you again on our next Seekers of Meaning TV show and podcast. In the meantime, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy. Shalom.